Well, no sooner had I literally just finished recording another possible video for today, and the silhouettes have dropped. Thanks to, of course, Kaz's Twitter. I'd heard rumblings of there being no circuit this time around, which is disappointing, but on the plus side, we do have 5 cars instead of 3. I know, of course, cars aren't the be-all and end-all, but it does also appear to be interesting in terms of what cars are arriving, because not only are there 5 instead of 3, but also one of them is a returning manufacturer. Now, it's not Lotus, before you get hopes up too much, it's Volvo. We've got a couple of Volvos on the way, a couple of Hondas this time around, and a Nissan as well. So a fairly Japanese-heavy update, which isn't too surprising for Gran Turismo, and I believe most, if not all of these, were in the data mining list, which of course I recovered down from about 80 vehicles to about 50. It's even less than that still due to arrive now that we keep getting more and more, and of course these 5 also adding to that. So, as we move through these 5 silhouettes, we'll work first of all from the bottom left, which is of course a race car, as you can clearly see, and then we'll work in a clockwise motion around the ring. So first things first, this is a car from that data mining list, like I alluded to, the GT500 racing spec, older shape, back when it still had the pop-up lights of Honda NSX. So like the Castrol Mugen, I think it was, that kind of era with the white, black and green. Again, it falls into this kind of trajectory which we've seen recently of them adding some slightly older cars in the racing classes, like the GT1 and various others as well. So, of course, another icon from the series. I wonder how they would decide what team to go for, because, of course, years ago on the channel I reviewed all of those different JGTC spec cars, and many of them felt kind of identical to each other because of the rulebook, so I wonder how they choose which one they're going to go for. You could almost just add a base model at this point, because you know it's going to end up having so many different team colours, but whichever one they do, the NSX always delivers a lot in terms of performance, so that one will be interesting to see what it can do. Next up, as we move just above that one, we've got a car which, of course, I'm a fan of. It's one of my favourite iterations of the Skyline. Gran Turismo and Skylines go together like, well, Skylines and Gran Turismo. This is an R31 shaped GTS-R, the rear-wheel drive version with up around, I think it was like 207 horsepower, I want to say, in the older Gran Turismo games. You could only buy it in that single colour, almost a midnight purple-esque kind of tone. Super boxy. Of course, it has a nice tie-in to the racing side of things with the super silhouette version of the R30 generation. So now you've got the R30 in racing form, the R31 in road form. Pretty cool to have that kind of crossover there in some senses. And then, of course, as we move into the third one, this one is significant for a couple of reasons. Not only because this is one of 2 vehicles from a returning manufacturer, that being Volvo, of all things, which of course we did know was coming back, or at least should be, thanks to again the data mining list, and we'll return to that idea in a second, but also because this is an estate car, which we don't exactly have a huge abundance of in the past couple of Gran Turismo games, the Volvo 240, one of the most iconic estate cars of all time, and of course this thing will be turned into everything under the sun, from rally builds to drift builds. I mean, imagine if you can get some motor swaps, this thing could be far crazier now, thanks to engine swaps alone, than it ever was in Gran Turismo's past, so that one will definitely have plenty of fans, and for some people I could actually see you probably looking forward to that one more than anything else here. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with that sentiment either. The next one is a Volvo as well, as we move down just below it. My first thought when I saw this one was actually something like a almost Mercedes A45 AMG kind of look to it, with that swoopy bonnet, but it's actually looking to be the Volvo V40. The T5-R design, which again was straight out of that data mined list. This was, I believe, the only Volvo that was data mined, if I recall correctly. The wagon may have come later, but I don't recall seeing that one. For now, though, this one is from that list, so yet another vehicle there. Kind of an interesting pick. The Volvos have always been a bit of an eclectic mix in Gran Turismo's history, with, of course, this and the C30 being slightly less obvious choices. This one, I would say, even less obvious than a C30. The next one is, of course, another JDM fan favourite, another one from the list which we knew was arriving. It is another Civic, and of course some people will be rolling their eyes at that concept, but again, in a similar way to how the Skyline is now a road-going version to an existing, I know, not quite racing version of that same generation, but pretty close. Likewise, this time around, we already had the Time Attack Civic of the older generation, the early 90s shape, and this one is looking to be the SIR2 of around 1993 or so of the EG Civic. So again, road version to go with the motorsport version. There's no doubt in my mind that this will be massively popular for JDM aficionados, of course. One of the slightly more normal builds within the JDM world, not quite as crazy as like a Type R or an FQ400 or all these kind of things which many of us clamour over. A bit more real world, a bit more JDM, you could say, putting more of the emphasis on domestic in the JDM name. So ultimately, it's an interesting 5. It's quite eclectic. Having Volvo back officially is awesome. The Classic Estate is definitely the standout here in terms of being the most unique one. But ultimately, we'll have to wait and see what each of them can do. Don't expect any engine swaps initially for these ones, as is always the case. If they're going to get them, it will probably be the month after. So likewise, it will be interesting to see what engine swaps we get this time around for presumably perhaps some of the ones from last month and some others as well. And like I said, if what I've heard is accurate, we are probably not getting a circuit again, which is a disappointment. Doubtless there'll be, a couple of new events or whatever in career mode for us to check out. So all of that will be coming here on the channel. On Wednesday, we should, of course, have the trailer, which I will cover to get confirmation of these. And then on Thursday, the update itself will drop. I'll give my overall thoughts, and then in the following days on the channel, of course, I'll talk about the cars, whether or not they're worth coming back and logging into the game for, and perhaps even some tuning, etc. So of course, I'll see you then for all of that. And for now, thanks for watching.